So yeah, as you said, I totally switched roles, thought I'm going to get away from teaching for a bit. Worked in customer services, really enjoyed it. Worked in management, people management. Didn't enjoy that so much. Sorry to any of my old employees who I might be listening to this. But Joe, I hate to say it, maybe I'm being too honest here, but people management in office was really similar to classroom management in some respects. And I was just like, wow, this isn't actually as different as I thought it would be. Like we always say, like your marketing should sort of attract the right people you want to work with and repel the ones you don't want to work with. Not in a horrible way, but it's just, good for both sides of the party. My website, which is lovemondaysclub.co.uk. The name I know is so super cheesy and it makes me kind of like smirk a bit every time I say it. But honestly, it was inspired from commuting to work on a Monday, feeling totally miserable, not wanting to go to work, having suffered the Sunday scaries. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be, it's super like cringy and cheesy when I say it, but I genuinely said to myself, like, wouldn't it be nice just to love Mondays?
Hello and welcome to the Qualified Tutor podcast, the podcast that brings you the latest in the world of tutoring, edtech and education, and hopefully inspires in you the big change that each and every one of us is capable of. Qualified Tutor is an industry-leading tutor training organisation and online tutoring community for thousands of tutors around the world. This podcast is the voice of this community, where we aim to hear from tutors, teachers, entrepreneurs, coaches, business experts, students, tutorpreneurs, and more from the world of tutoring about what inspires them every day, how they can help tutors like you, and what they've learnt about tutoring along the way. The question is, what will you learn today?
Hello and welcome to the 142nd episode of the Qualified Tutor podcast. My name is Ludo Miller, the host of this podcast. Welcome back to our regular listeners. Welcome to any of you for whom this is your first time listening to the Qualified Tutor podcast. And a very warm welcome to our guest today, Helen Dickman. Helen, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Ludo. Thank you so much for having me here today.
This is, as so many of our guests are, or at least a good number are, you're on the other side of the mic today. Don't know if that will mean anything, really. It's going to be a wonderful conversation anyway, Helen, but sorry that you can't host this one. For those of you who don't know Helen, which I imagine is probably not very many of you, Helen is in lots of communities online and, of course, has some of her own groups and communities, which we'll be touching on today. I just wanted to give a little bit of a background to Helen so you know where we're coming from today. So Helen graduated with a BA in English language before beginning her professional career as an English as a foreign language teacher in Europe, before moving on onto a role as an educational consultant really here in the UK, which is how many of you will have come across Helen, I'm sure. And after, I believe it was a fairly swift role in customer support, you decided that running your own business was a much more worthwhile and valuable career move. So you founded the fantastic HD Home Tuition in kind of largely in the southeast of England. That's where you tend to have your clients and your base. And nowadays, Helen helps teachers and tutors with getting their business up and running, something that so many of us have found ourselves doing over this lockdown period. And that really comes in the form of the Love Mondays Club, a multi-format series of resources, many of them totally free, to assist in this development, this progress. We've also got a free ebook, the Tutors Business Support Facebook group, the Love Mondays Club podcast, of course, and a 6-week program for kickstarting that tuition business. And a wonderful addition, may I also say, Helen, to any live event or conference. Many a good time has been shared at previous events. So really, really lovely to have you on, Helen. What is giving you reason to smile today, Monday, the 21st of November?
Oh my goodness. Well, do you know what? Listening to all of that, thank you so much for such a lovely, welcoming, detailed introduction. Do you know, I feel a bit overwhelmed at just, all that stuff you mentioned there, but it's true. I know. I'm a very busy lady. But no, I'm really happy to be here. And like you said, it's a funny one being on the other side of the microphone. I'll be honest, it's almost a bit nerve-wracking being on the other side of these things. It's, what questions are coming. But no, it's exciting. There's lots of stuff going on. Christmas is around the corner. And I think this is like a really nice time of year as well. Like, I feel like it's the last little push on the accelerator until we've got the Christmas holidays in a few weeks. So yeah, lots of stuff going on.
Lots to smell. Perhaps not the rain, but as you say, there's lots of things to look forward to, lots of work to be done. So I wondered if we could start, Helen, by looking back to kind of your why, about where your journey to where you are today came from. And really, if you could tell us a little bit about that why.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I'll try to do the short version. So do you know what? When I was at school, we were chatting a little bit about this just before we started the podcast. Like, at school, I went to a grammar school. I sort of did quite well, but I definitely sort of cruised in that average bracket at school. I was never really pushed that much. I still got good grades and went on to university and sort of ticked all those boxes. But even sort of at a younger age, I was sort of very aware of, like, if somebody just, I don't know, maybe gave me that nudge or that push that I needed. I was a teenager. I wasn't overly self-motivated with these things. And I felt like I probably could achieve a lot more. So I decided I loved teaching. I wanted to go into it. I actually started working at a Kumon centre when I was like 16. So I've been doing this for a very long time now in some sort of capacity of tutoring. So I really loved that. It was a great little first job to have. I was like marking the books in the corner or something like that. And I wanted to travel abroad. So sort of after I did my TESOL qualification and went and did that in Europe. And that was fantastic. And I did work for this great company, and we did sort of like 5-day stints in different schools. And on the last day, we always had to do a production for the parents, which was a huge ask because this was like, English was not their first language. I, as a teacher, was expected to not only teach 4 days, but write an entire script, like a play, for them to then perform on the Friday. It was seriously intense, but some of like the best teaching experiences I've ever had. So that kind of, I guess, that creativity and that freedom, I really loved that. Obviously, there were sort of learning outcomes and aims to achieve, but I was pretty much left to my own devices, which I loved. Came back to the UK, did a bit of stuff in secondary schools. Honestly, didn't enjoy it very much. I was sort of put in to do intervention stuff. I was, basically being brought in at the last minute. I could just see where there were so many faults in the system, I guess, for want of a better phrase. And that really frustrated me. And I just thought, this is not the career for me. So yeah, as you said, I totally switched roles, thought I'm going to get away from teaching for a bit. Worked in customer services, really enjoyed it. Worked in management, people management. Didn't enjoy that so much. Sorry to any of my old employees who I might be listening to this. But sure, I hate to say it, maybe I'm being too honest here, but people management in office was really similar to classroom management in some respects. And I was just like, wow, this isn't actually as different as I thought it would be. So I sort of kind of off the back of this, I actually went and did qualifications in counselling skills, because at the same time I was still doing a little bit of tutoring on the side. And, I think as tutors, we spend a lot of intense time with families and kids, and we really get to know them in a way that you just don't do in a classroom. And that presented me with some like challenging situations sometimes, that ones that I just kind of wasn't almost like mentally myself prepared to deal with, but also didn't know how to respond. And I think being a teacher, we always feel like we have to have the answers to the problems. But actually doing this counselling course really taught me the value of just being quiet and just listening, something I struggled with for many years. I've got better at it. So that was a fantastic opportunity. And yeah, I just, ultimately, I've always wanted to work for myself. Like, I know it sounds silly, but I used to hate asking for time off. And I would like to pretend that since becoming self-employed, I live this lovely life of like having all this time off that I dreamed of. It's probably been a bit of the opposite, but at least that's my choice, and it's something that I get to do. So yeah, that was kind of one of the main things, becoming self-employed. And yeah, I started HG Home Tuition. I've been self-employed now for nearly 5 years. And kind of the rest is history. Yeah, I've sort of done I did like lots of tutors, started off working with loads of different students, taking on sort of every job that first came my way, totally overwhelmed, teaching way too many year groups and subjects, and managed to niche it down to kind of just 11 plus English now. So that's where we are on the tutoring journey at the moment.
Yeah, there's so much in there, and such a lovely summary of where you started. I think that Kumon stuff is huge. I think starting that young, has so many advantages to understanding the class, and maybe it was a bit too young to be starting there. I don't know. That was, it's one of those ones that, seeing as you found the classroom environment was a little bit tricky. Maybe that was something that, tutoring should have been something that you started doing at 16 rather than kind of working in those Kumon centres. But it's very similar, those environments. So, I mean, what you mentioned there, obviously. Just starting to talk about the journey of being a small education business leader and some of the pitfalls people might fall into. But I wondered if you could give a little bit of an insight into how you are able to manage all the little stresses and pitfalls of running an education business. How do you get past those?
So I think, do you know what? I think so much about running your own business is that every day is a bit of a learning curve. I know when I sort of look back on when I first started my business, I expected to have it all figured out. I wanted that silver bullet to kind of get it all perfect from day one. I've yet to meet a business owner who started a business and got it perfect from day one. But I actually think my biggest bit of advice, from coaching when I work with people, is just embrace that. I think my thing is I just try everything, any new bit of technology, any new sort of little marketing technique. It's really worked for me because I think one of the big things is it's sort of given a lot of confidence to put myself out there a bit more and try these things. So I guess one sort of big pitfall I think to avoid is kind of what I just said that I did wrong in the beginning was taking on too many different students. I think it's a bit of a mindset thing. I think it's that scarcity mindset of I'm going to run out of students almost, and I have to take this opportunity. And that definitely led to me working 5, sometimes 6 days a week. The pandemic then really made this 10 times worse because ultimately, probably like everybody else, I was really bored and didn't really have much to do. And so if people said to me, do you want to do stuff on a Sunday? I'd be like, oh, well, Sunday is now Tuesday in the pandemic, so in lockdown. So what's the problem? But I did suddenly find myself working 7 days a week at one point. And at the time, actually, just before we went into lockdown, I don't know why, I'd had some kind of weird foresight that I wanted to start doing online businesses. And I'd actually started building online courses just before the pandemic hit us. So in I don't know, maybe it's a bit of a fortuitous thing, but I was sort of a few steps ahead almost in that sense. So I'd already kind of got a bit of online experience before we were all suddenly forced to move online. So I think that really helped. But yeah, so I think that's a huge thing for people is boundaries, is making sure in those early days that you set really strict boundaries for yourself in terms of who you want to work with, the days and times that you want to work. And that structure, I think, as well makes you much more productive, because you kind of know you've only got a certain amount of hours to fill or a certain amount of time. And I found that really helpful with sort of running my business.
So the pandemic was quite a bit of a boost really for the work you did.
Yeah, majorly. I mean, I think for lots of people, I know I've spoken to lots of tutors about this and said, getting people online beforehand was really difficult. People were kind of quite skeptical about it. But of course, it sort of forced us to move online. On the flip side, though, I have actually spoken to lots of people and parents who it's had the negative effect where maybe the experience they had of the schools teaching online, they didn't like that, their children didn't get on with it, so then they've kind of ruled out online tutoring off the back of that. So I do think there's a big education piece, in all of our tutoring sort of online tutors of marketing, is to really show the value of online tutoring and what sort of families can get out of it.
With thanks to our sponsors this week, Newman Tuition and their founder, Zach Newman.
Hi, this is Zach from Newman Tuition. Educating young people and helping them to fulfill their potential is one of life's great joys. If you are a high caliber individual who shares our passion for teaching, then we would like to hear from you. We are committed to gathering together tutors who have strong academic records, an enthusiasm for teaching, and excellent interpersonal skills. This is why we seek only the best tutors to join our network and why we are recommended by the Good Schools Guide. To join our team or to find out more, please visit newmantuition.co.uk.
We've had lots of conversations on this podcast and in the tutoring communities that we're both in about the pandemic and what it did for tutoring. We are now in the back end of 2022 and things have certain processes and patterns from the pandemic have become ingrained. Some of them good, some of them bad. I think people are learning to set those boundaries a lot better. And I think parents in general are starting to see the power of online tutoring a little bit more, not as some temporary measure, but as a long-term kind of measurement. What can we as tutors do to encourage parents and students that online tutoring is perhaps, is as good or perhaps a better option than the in-person stuff?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I guess I can only speak from my own experience. Kind of two things, really. One, I think a lot of this sort of comes down to marketing and who you're trying to attract. So like for me, I know that I'm very much sort of targeting people online. That's only who I want to work with now. So I'm very strategic about sort of where I place my marketing and what sort of messages I put out there. And to be honest, I don't get any face-to-face inquiries anymore. Like we always say, like your marketing should sort of attract the right people you want to work with and repel the ones you don't want to work with. Not in a horrible way, but it's just, good for both sides of the party. So I think one major thing is sort of being careful with people and saying to them, if you only want to work online, make sure that is really clear in like what you're offering and the services you're offering. But also as well, if you've got people who are maybe a little bit on the fence with it. I mean, I had this with a few families, and I think especially when you're first starting off and you're trying to build your business, why not offer them just like a little free trial, just like not a whole hour. It could literally just be like 20 minutes, but just something and make sure that lesson is like super engaging, and something that the child really gets on with. Because we want, like, ultimately the kids are our best sort of like reviews, aren't they? If the child goes back to the parent and says like, I had a great time, I learned all this stuff, I really enjoyed it. Like, I think 9 times out of 10, that's what a lot of parents are looking for, is that like engagement from their child. So I always think if I can win the kid over, then actually the parent side of it isn't too tricky, So yeah, I'd recommend doing that. I think those are my sort of 2 main things I'd say.
Yeah, I think that focus on branding and marketing in the online world, it's become more difficult to market yourself as a tutor because the competition is now so much larger. But it has perhaps become easier to market yourself in the way that you want to. Want to market yourself in a particular niche or providing a particular set of services. That has become easier. There are a lot of marketing tools now and marketing channels to do that. Yeah,
and actually as well, another thing I was speaking to. So from my coaching point of view, one of my clients I work with, so they're trying to build an online business, and we were talking about this the other day, and I said to them, actually, another bit of advice is like always get people on the phone. I'm not a fan of this whole selling in emails and direct messages. Mainly because it takes a lot of time going back and forth, and the truth is it's a lot easier for people to ghost you, because I hear this a lot from people. They say, I get all these inquiries and then I don't hear anything back when I reply to them. So I think this is something I learned from working in customer services is don't put things in writing and get people on the phone. But it's really true, and it's really powerful because, when people like hear your voice or they can see your, even better, if you can get them on Zoom, that's 10 times better. We're kind of going into like sales tactics here, sales techniques, but ultimately, if you're having a proper conversation with people, you can sort of challenge them on maybe some of the beliefs they have. So, if they say they're not interested in online tuition, like ask them why, be really curious and find out about it. And like I've said, in my experience, lots of people have said to me, it's because they had a bad time in school, like the way that maybe the school did it with them. So then that gives you the prime opportunity to like talk about why your tuition online is so different and how it differs from school so much. And of course, as well, like again, with marketing, sharing feedback and results and things from other parents is going to be really powerful as well to help persuade people.
Yeah. So you've kind of just touched on it there, and I know you're being humble in not promoting your coaching business, but Helen, how do you support small education businesses?
Yes. So basically, I help tutors kind of get up and running in their businesses. I think, as I sort of said, when I first started mine, look, I'll be hand on heart honest. I was a super stubborn person and was like, I can do this all by myself. I don't need any help. Looking back, oh my goodness, I would probably be so much further right now than I am if I had actually taken some advice or taken some help. So that was partly my inspiration. I got into coaching. I'd always wanted to do it in the future. But I got into it because a woman had actually been following my my tuition business and basically said to me, "Can you show me how you do it?" And that was only a year ago, and it opened a can of worms, and here we are. So yeah, I have different kind of processes. So I have as you mentioned earlier, my Kickstart program, which starts in December, and that's like a kind of 6-week course that basically just helps people get up and running online. And a lot of what we've talked about today, obviously going into a lot more detail, but talking about like marketing strategies and if you want to work just online, then we need to really look at like your messaging and how you're attracting those kinds of people. So a lot of it is sort of like business strategy and marketing advice. I certainly don't teach people how to tutor and things like that, because we all have our own styles, and that's not my specialism. And then I've got a big sort of 7-month program for people who are kind of like the next level up, maybe already have students but they want to like expand and grow a lot more, so like start big group programs or maybe even agencies and things like that.
Awesome. So where can people go to find out about that part of what you do, Helen? What's the best thing to do for listeners?
Probably, 2 places really. Probably my website, which is lovemondaysclub.co.uk. The name I know is so super cheesy and it makes me kind of like smirk a bit every time I say it. But honestly, it was inspired from commuting to work on a Monday, feeling totally miserable, not wanting to go to work, having suffered the Sunday scaries. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be, it's super like cringy and cheesy when I say it, but I genuinely said to myself, like, wouldn't it be nice just to love Mondays and actually like it, feel excited about what I'm going to do. So yeah, kind of in a nutshell, that's how I want people to feel. Like I don't want them to feel like stressed and like not enjoying the process of running their own business, despite the kind of ups and downs there are. So yeah, the website, and then also my Facebook group is a good one to go to as well, which is the Tutors Business Support Group. Think about that.
Lovely. And thank God we chose today to record this podcast, it being Monday, the 21st of November. Yeah. So that's why you're on such flying form, Helen. I think it'd be really helpful if you've kind of mentioned at some points already, but just for those listening, we like actionable tips here on this podcast. That's kind of what I'm always trying to push guests and help them share their expertise. What are your top 3 tips for an entrepreneur looking to grow their small tutoring business? Okay, got to narrow these down. I think honestly, one of the main ones is show your face and be present. I think that a lot of people hide behind sort of logos or branding. Lots of people love to use the royal we when they're talking about their business. But then when you kind of scratch or you ask them, who else works in the business? Oh, no, it's just me. And I think, but listen, look, no judgment. I did that when I first started. I was the royal we, and it was, maybe me and my virtual assistant who was helping me. But I think that we do this because we feel like it makes us seem like a bigger company or, bigger business and, quote unquote, sort of more legitimate. But actually, like what people are buying into, especially I think with tutoring and any kind of service-based business really, is like that phrase, people buy people. So your clients, they want to see your face, they want to see your personality, they want to see who their child's going to be working with. So that's my number one thing. Like have logos, everything else, but just make sure that your face is on there as well, because again, kind of like that's much more recognizable for people. So show your face. Another big one that maybe people might not suspect I'm going to say this is starting an email list, because if you want to grow your business, email lists are, they're not just a sort of form of marketing, but they're also an asset in your business. Something I always come back to people, I could literally go off on a huge tangent here for 20 minutes talking about why you should do email marketing. But essentially you get
almost, do the maths, like sort of 8 times more reach roughly when it comes to email marketing. Let's say you're building all your business on social media. Okay, that's great. You have a huge audience out there. But not too long ago, Facebook and Instagram went down for the day, didn't it? And imagine if you were doing like a big launch or something on that day. What could you do? Like absolutely nothing. How are you meant to reach people? And also as well, like ultimately we're not in control of our social media accounts. And I don't want to like instill fear in people here, but I think also being honest, your account could be hacked. I've had Facebook send me messages saying they were going to like freeze my account because I was commenting on something too much. I mean, I was replying to comments that people were sort of directing to me, but because I was replying too quickly, Facebook didn't like that for some reason, which is super frustrating, So I think like for me, an email list has always been my insurance and backup of like my customers, but it's also been the place where I've got the most sales in my business. It does take a lot of work in setting it all up, and it does take a little while for it to get going. But like all these things, it's a bit of a snowball effect. And once you sort of make it a part of your business, I promise you it'll become such a valuable asset for them to have. Show your face, email lists, and what would be the last one? Probably be open to new ideas and new opportunities. Just try lots of different things. I think especially with technology, like if you want to do tutoring online, there is so much interesting technology out there that you can use, whether it's like online course creation. So I help lots of people do that. So I also run the 11 Plus English Club with a lady called Lucy Kennedy, and we have loads of online courses and things that we've created, and that has been like an incredible asset for our business, because now we can offer kind of not just tuition but also like all of these resources and practice materials alongside it. Really be open to the possibility of like trying all this stuff, and it's not difficult to learn either. Don't let technology scare you.
That's tip number 4. Don't let technology scare you.
Sorry, yeah.
3. I said 3. Yeah, that's just a snippet of what Helen can do for you and your business.
And now a brief word from last week's guest, Steph Barber, whose episode you can catch after this.
Hi, Steph here. First of all, I just wanted to thank Qualified Tutor Podcast for the opportunity to talk to you. And Ludo, particularly, thank you so much. It was great fun talking to you. And to be honest, I could have kept talking to you all afternoon. I really enjoyed it. It was also lovely to take a moment to be able to say thank you to tutors and teachers, and just remember how life-changing, particularly in my case, a teacher was. I would also like to say that I know that tutors are going through change at the moment, and that process is always going to be uncomfortable. But do you know what? If you plan and you see it as an opportunity to review how you're working, you are going to end up with a business that's better for you, that's better for your clients, and that's going to be more profitable and easier to run. And there is help out there. If you want to join our webinars, you want some free information, please do reach out. And if you are thinking about being a guest on the Qualified Tutor Podcast, I would say don't hesitate. Just go and be a guest, because I just know you're going to enjoy it as much as I did. Thanks very much.
Helen, we're just kind of drawing to a close here, but I have two further questions that I want to ask, because the second one is one that we ask all guests, but the first one I want to ask is, someone like you is clearly ambitious, clearly has a good handle on the educational landscape, tutoring landscape, and this podcast is all about hearing those great ideas. So please be as ambitious and as forward-thinking as you can. But if you had a magic wand, let's just say, and you could wave it over the educational landscape, what would we see?
Oh, that is an interesting one. Do you know what? Something for me that I have really struggled with, and I know this is maybe sort of a bit bizarre because I'm an 11 plus tutor, but I don't know if I should say this. I actually don't like the 11 plus exams. Now, in the sense that I don't like, I live in an area where the schools are so competitive to get into, like hundreds, thousands of kids applying for a few spaces. And I don't like the sort of pressure that the kids are put under for it. This is a whole part of my tutoring business, is that I say to parents, like, I'm not about hothousing your kid to get them a result, like for me, this is about them learning and giving them an opportunity. And if they pass, fantastic, we'll celebrate it. But if they don't pass, that doesn't matter. Like, they're still probably going to be top sets of the schools that they go to. And, going to a grammar school doesn't necessarily define your future. Now, I'm not saying get rid of the 11 plus, but I just wish that there was kind of more opportunity out there for kids and it wasn't so competitive. Now, I know lots of people listening to this might be thinking, what's this woman saying? Because it's going to take us all out of business, 11 plus tuition. But do you know what? Like, I guess this is trying to be a selfless thing to say, is that I don't believe that, 10-year-olds should feel as much pressure. Like, a 10-year-old should not be burning out. Like, as adults, we struggle so much with our mental health and stress and finding balance. Why are we putting our kids through that at such a young age as well? Yeah,
I think that focus, it is funny that that is a potentially confusing thing to be saying, but hey, that is the truth. And it would be great to see, if not, removal of the 11 plus, that's too strong, but at least an update to it, or focus on more valuable things as part
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I know that conversation can lead us down very political routes as well. But yeah. I think that, like I say, this is kind of the main ethos of us with our 11 plus English club that I run with Lucy. Is that, it's about trying to make it as sort of stress-free, and easy is not the right word, but like as accessible as possible for families, so they just don't feel that, because it's also a very secretive world as well. People don't share, because obviously it's so competitive. So, people don't share very much information. So there's always a kind of, you can see it in the forums and things, parents are very sort of distressed about it all. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice to see a way to navigate that is more to know how that looks. Maybe the magic wand would develop, those ideas, it being magic after all. But yeah, Helen, final question then here, because we love to look ahead to the future. And I know that there's so much to come from both HD Home Tuition and the Love Mondays Club, which may well become Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. What is next for you? What's next for Helen Dickman?
Oh, well, kind of, this is almost sort of doing a full circle back to the beginning, isn't it? It's overwhelming. What's next? Who knows? No. So, look, I'm still doing a lot of tutoring and I really love it. And I think, again, we were talking about this sort of just before the podcast. Like, I think it's really important that I'll always stay doing some form of tutoring, because it sort of keeps you sort of real and at that level and sort of at the grassroots working with people. So the plan is for the 11 plus English club, which is kind of more my focus now than HD Home Tuition. We're going to grow that a lot more. We're on sort of target, hopefully, to be working with about 100 kids next year. So that's really exciting. And then for my coaching, really, it's sort of just working with lots of new people. So I've got my new program that's starting in December. Something that I think I'm going to focus a lot on in 2023 is really helping people build their confidence. Because I think sometimes, and I see this a lot with sort of coaching and mentoring, that you can give people like all the tools in the toolkit, but actually a huge part of online business is like having that confidence to kind of show up and put your face out there. So that is something that I would really like to help a lot more people to do, because, there are so many people out there who are like the best kept secret. And they're really frustrated as well that other people don't know about them. So I want to be that bridge to help people kind of get to what they can achieve in the future.
What a lovely journey to be on and to be part of. So I feel very, very lucky, Helen.
Thank you
so much for coming on, Helen. I know you'll have a very busy schedule, and fitting this in was a really nice thing to do. Get this episode in, but before Christmas, before the turn of the year, so that people can really start to think about that heading into the new year. So thank you for coming on. I hope you enjoyed talking about a little bit about your background, your career, moving ahead. It's a nice thing to discuss for business leaders.
Been a trip down memory lane. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, listeners, we will see you all again next time. Today has been the 142nd episode of the Qualified Tutor Podcast. Yes. I've been Ludo Miller. Our guest has been Helen Dickman. We'll see you all again next time. Cheerio, Helen.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Qualified Tutor Podcast. Your next step is to check out the Love Tutoring community, and in particular, Love Tutoring Community Connect, a new premium membership space which will serve all your subject-specific CPD needs alongside a friendly, professional community space that meets regularly. Visit qualifiedtutor.org/transformational-training to find out more about our CPD accredited Level 2 safeguarding and Ofqual recognised courses, the first of their kind in the tutoring industry. See you there.